Hey everyone, and welcome back to Talk Tickers, where we break down all those earnings calls that you're too busy to listen to yourself.
That's right. And today we're diving into the latest from Exact Sciences, the company behind Cologuard, the at-home colon cancer test.
Yeah, the one you've probably seen all those ads for on TV.
Exactly. So they just dropped their Q3 report, and well, it's got Wall Street a little puzzled.
So on the surface, things look okay. I mean, their revenue is up 13% year over year.
Yeah, to like $709 million.
Not bad at all.
And their adjusted EBITDA margin is up a healthy 500 basis points.
So 14% now.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The stock tanked after hours.
It's like a 30% drop.
Yeah, almost 30%. So
Yeah.
we're going to try and figure out what spooked investors, what this means for Exact Sciences going forward, and most importantly, what you should be watching for.
Okay, so first things first, Cologuard, they're bread and butter.
Yeah, Cologuard sales, they just didn't meet expectations this quarter.
And they blamed it on a few things.
Like what?
Well, they said fewer people are going to the doctor for regular checkups.
Which means fewer doctors are ordering Cologuard.
Right, like who goes to the doctor if they feel fine?
Especially after the pandemic kind of messed with everyone's healthcare routines.
Totally. And then you had those hurricanes, Helene and Milton.
Yeah, those were brutal. And when you know it, they hit areas that account for like 18% of Cologuard's volume.
So not only were orders disrupted, but processing those test results got messed up too.
Oof. Yeah, talk about bad timing, but there's one more thing, their sales force.
So they expanded their sales team, but those new recruits haven't been hitting their numbers.
Yeah, and selling Cologuard is a little trickier than you might think.
How so?
Well, you've got to understand all those complex medical concepts, and then there's navigating insurance coverage.
It's not like selling sneakers.
Exactly. There's a steep learning curve, and it takes time to really master.
Okay, so are these legitimate reasons for the Cologuard slowdown, or are they just making excuses?
I mean, they're valid reasons, but it does make you wonder about their ability to, adapt and execute in a constantly changing healthcare environment.
That's a really good point. But let's not forget, there are some bright spots in this report too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like their rescreening program is doing really well.
So that's getting people who've already used Cologuard to test again.
Right. And it's already 25% of their screening revenue.
So that's some nice recurring revenue.
Definitely shows they're building loyalty with their customer base.
And then there's those care gap programs.
Care gap programs.
Yeah, where insurers and healthcare systems actually reach out to patients who are overdue for screenings.
Yeah, that's a really smart way to boost adherence and tap into a huge market.
And they've got this digital platform called Exact Nexus to help manage those programs.
Yeah, think of it like your own personal cancer screening assistant.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, it sends you reminders when you're due for a test, helps you find a provider in your network, and even connects you with your insurance company to make sure Cologuard is covered.
Wow. So it streamlines the whole process.
It does. Takes all the hassle out of getting screened.
That's awesome.
And it could be a game changer. Remember those FIT tests? Those are the traditional fecal immunochemical tests.
Oh, yeah.
Millions of those are done through care gap programs every year.
So if Exact Sciences can grab even a small piece of that market with Cologuard.
The numbers get really exciting.
Okay, so we've got some headwinds with Cologuard's growth,
Okay.
but we've also got rescreening these care gap programs and this cool Exact Nexus platform.
But we haven't even talked about the big news, the game changer that's got everyone talking.
Cologuard Plus.
Cologuard Plus. This is the one that could really change the game.
Yeah, so what's the deal with Cologuard Plus? What makes it so special?
Well, for one thing, it's way more accurate.
Like how much more?
They're saying 95% cancer sensitivity and 94% specificity.
So it's better at detecting cancer and it's less likely to give you a false positive.
Exactly. And you know what that means?
Higher price tag.
You got it. They're definitely aiming for a premium price for Cologuard Plus, and it sounds like Medicare might be okay with that.
Makes sense. If it catches cancer earlier, it could save the healthcare system a lot of money in the long run.
Right now, getting those commercial payers on board might be a little tougher.
Yeah, those negotiations can be tricky.
But if they can pull it off, the revenue potential is huge.
Okay, so Cologuard Plus sounds promising, but they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, right? They've got other stuff in the works too.
Oh, yeah, definitely like OncotypeDX that's already helping doctors personalize treatment plans for breast cancer patients.
And it's doing really well internationally.
Really well. And then there's OncoDEtect. That's a blood test that can detect residual cancer cells after surgery.
So you can make sure the cancer hasn't come back.
Right, that one's still a couple of years away from launching, but it could be a game changer.
And they're even looking at using it to screen for multiple types of cancer.
Exactly. So they're not just focused on colon cancer anymore. They want to be a leader in all kinds of cancer diagnostics.
It's a smart strategy, but can they actually pull it off? I mean, we already saw those issues with the sales force and launching a new product like Cologuard Plus while trying to expand into new markets. That's a lot to handle.
No doubt execution is key here. That's what Wall Street's going to be watching closely.
They need to show they can overcome these challenges and actually turn these opportunities into results.
And they've set some pretty ambitious goals for themselves. 15% compounded annual revenue growth and an adjusted EBITDA margin over 20% by 2027.
That's a high bar.
It is, but if they can nail the Cologuard Plus launch, scale up those care gap programs, and keep innovating with products like OncoDEtect, those targets might not be out of reach.
So it all comes down to execution. Can they convince investors that they have the right team and the right plan to deliver on these promises?
Exactly. And they need to attract those long-term investors, not just the ones looking for a quick buck.
Okay, so for all our listeners out there, the savvy investors tuning in to Talk Tickers, what's the bottom line?
Well, first things first, remember, we are not financial advisors.
Definitely not.
This is a complex situation. There's a lot going on. So any investment decisions you make should be based on your own careful research.
Absolutely. Do your due diligence, assess the risks, and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Couldn't agree more, but now that we've got that out of the way,
Time for some fun.
let's speculate.
This is not financial advice segment where we come up with a crazy but maybe plausible trade idea based on what we've learned.
Okay, hit me with it.
So we know exact science is facing some short-term challenges. The stock price reflects that. But we've also seen that they have huge potential for growth in the long run.
Cologuard Plus, care gap programs, OncoDEtect. There's a lot to be excited about if you believe in their vision.
Right. So here's my crazy idea. What if we buy some long-term call options on excess?
Long-term calls, huh? So you're really betting on that long-term growth.
I am. I think Cologuard Plus is going to be a hit. They'll figure out those commercial payer negotiations, and they'll keep innovating and expanding if they can do all that. Those long-term calls could be worth a fortune.
That's a bold move, high risk, high reward. But everyone listening, remember, this is just a hypothetical.
Purely hypothetical.
Don't base your investment decisions on our wild speculation.
Always do your research and talk to a financial advisor before you invest in anything.
Okay, so enough about hypothetical trades. Let's get back to those care gap programs.
Yeah, I think those deserve a closer look. They could be a big deal for Exact Sciences, and they might even change the future of cancer screening.
I agree. They're fascinating, and not a lot of people are talking about them. Let's break it down and see what we can learn.
So care gap programs, what are we talking about here?
So, you know those traditional ways of getting people screened for colon cancer? Like, not that effective.
You mean those FIT tests, the ones you do at home?
Exactly. Those little kits you mail back, compliance rates are terrible, like maybe 10, 15% at best.
Yeah, people get them and then they just forget about them.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind. But that's where Exact Sciences comes in. They're seeing much higher adherence rates, like double what you'd expect with FIT tests.
Wow, and that's where their Exact Nexus platform comes in, right? Like you said, it's like a personal screening assistant.
Exactly. It sends you reminders, helps you find a provider, walks you through the process, makes it all much easier.
So it's like having someone hold your hand and say, hey, get this done. We're here to help.
Pretty much. And that personalized support can make a big difference.
And you mentioned earlier, this is like a multi-billion-dollar opportunity for Exact Sciences. How so?
Well, think about it. Millions of those FIT tests are ordered through these care gap programs every year. And Exact Sciences is already showing they can get people to actually do the test. So imagine if they can convince insurers and healthcare systems to switch from those low compliance FIT tests to Cologuard.
I see what you're saying. If they can capture even a small piece of that existing market, the revenue potential is huge.
Huge. And that's on top of their existing Cologuard business. So these care gap programs could be a major growth driver for them.
Okay, so we've got Cologuard Plus coming out. These care gap programs are taking off, and they've got a bunch of other promising products in development. It seems like Exact Science is in a pretty good position for the future. But what are the biggest risks here? What could go wrong?
Yeah, good question. Execution is key. They've got a lot going on right now. Launching Cologuard Plus, scaling those care gap programs, expanding internationally, and they need to prove they can handle it all.
Yeah, they can't afford any more slip-ups like those Salesforce issues we talked about earlier.
Right, and the transition to Cologuard Plus has to be smooth. They need to keep building those relationships with insurers and healthcare providers.
And they can't forget about the competition. There are a lot of other companies out there working on cancer diagnostics.
Absolutely. They got to stay ahead of the curve, keep innovating, make smart acquisitions and partnerships.
It's a fast-moving industry.
Very fast-moving, but also incredibly exciting. The progress being made in cancer diagnostics is truly remarkable.
Okay, so to wrap things up for our listeners, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into Exact Sciences?
I think the big picture here is that Exact Sciences has a bold vision. They want to change the way we screen for and diagnose cancer. They're not just making tests, they're building a whole ecosystem to make screening easier and more effective.
And they're not afraid to take risks, to push the boundaries, and to invest in the future. But as with any high-growth company, there are risks and challenges.
For sure, investors need to pay attention to how well they execute their strategy, how well they navigate the healthcare system, and how committed they are to staying ahead of the competition in terms of innovation.
And remember, everyone, do your own research, understand the risks, and make informed investment decisions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So what do you think, everyone? What stood out to you about Exact Sciences? What do you think about their future? Head over to our social media channels and let us know.
And here's one last thing to think about. Could Exact Sciences become the biggest name in cancer screening, even bigger than traditional methods like colonoscopies? It's a big question and one worth thinking about. And with that, we'll wrap up this episode of Talk Tickers. Thanks for listening.